This is Keys to the Shop, episode 357, a conversation with Michael Tan of Just Want Coffee in Malaysia. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show, and I am always happy to have you along for the ride to listen to these amazing professionals and hear about topics that are relevant to your coffee business, all with the hopes of really encouraging you, equipping you, and creating a better coffee shop industry, and a more joyful and fulfilling one. I think that's what we all want, right? So welcome, and if you can, subscribe to Keys to the Shop. I think that would be a really good idea. Just hit subscribe wherever you get these podcasts, and that will help the show. It will help you because you'll be updated with new episodes as they come out. We do about 10 episodes every month, and so we kind of keep that line of resource coming to you, and so just hit subscribe. That would be awesome. And also share these episodes with a friend or with your team. There are a ton of coffee professionals in the world, and not every single one of them knows about Keys to the Shop, so we need to change that, and you are key in that quest. So share. Now, Keys to the Shop, on top of doing this podcast, also offers consulting and coaching for you and your business. Now, what that looks like is you get to work directly with me to either help you build your new coffee shop the right way the first time, trying to avoid needless mistakes and actually set really great foundations and make good decisions that will really pay off in the long run. Lots of people who sign up to do that as they look to start their first cafe, or if you are an existing operator and you're looking to optimize your coffee shop. Maybe there's some issues that you need to work through. You want to revamp your training and onboarding systems, or you want me to go to your cafe for a few days and assess your operations, your quality, and your people, and then walk with you through some solutions after the visit. There's a lot of different ways that you could work with Keys to the Shop, and I'm interested in what's going on so I can design something that works right for you, whether it's large or small. Give me an email, chris@keystotheshop.com. We'll set up a free discovery call and see what the right fit is for you and your business. Now, when I first got into coffee, one of the things that I really was taken by was all of the trade craft, the gear that you would buy, the tampers, the portafilters, everything that you needed, and it all comes together to make amazing coffee. And now I've been in coffee 22 years. I've seen a lot of things, and so I know what is standard and when things are exceptional. And I'm going to tell you that one of the most exceptional pieces of equipment that's truly changing the game in coffee is the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer from Voga Coffee. The Ground Control uses SCA award-winning technology to give you access to an unprecedented range of flavors in your coffee and the ability to control that whole process down to the most minute detail. It's almost like getting to know your coffee all over again. But not only is this the best batch brewer you can get, but it also makes tea, batched iced lattes, batched cold brew, so you multiply your effectiveness with a beautiful machine with a small footprint that you can easily train your staff on. It's a win across the board. Go visit them at groundcontrol.coffee to learn more information. And I truly think that if you want to serve your customers the absolute best expression of your coffee and increase the efficiency of your bar at the same time, you definitely need to be looking at getting a Ground Control Cyclops Brewer for your cafe. Again, go visit them over at groundcontrol.coffee. You know, I used to be a latte art champion. I don't know if you realize that. If you've listened to the show for very long, you may have heard me say that. I'm a 3-time latte art champion at Coffee Fest, and I'm a head judge there now too. And as I've practiced latte art my entire career, one of the things I've noticed is it's so much easier to make great latte art with plant-based beverages. In my day, it wasn't as easy, but there's so many more options today. And leading the pack, hands down, is the Pacific Barista Series. The Barista Series is leading the pack because it's designed for baristas and approved by some of the world's best baristas before any of their extensive lineup even hits your shelf. So it stands up to the heat from steaming, produces awesome texture for latte art, and it keeps the flavor balance focused on the coffee. So it looks beautiful, it tastes beautiful, I mean, it is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So you can go to pacificfoodservice.com to find more information and get this in your store to try it for yourself, and you'll see what I mean. I think you're really going to be impressed. If you want to serve your customers the best plant-based beverages, I absolutely think you should be serving them the Barista series from Pacific. All right, everybody. Well, today we are talking with Michael Tan, who is a wholesale trainer at Just Want Coffee, or JWC Coffee Roastery, in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He has been in the coffee industry now for 13 years, starting work at Starbucks, where he discovered how coffee can connect with a ton of people and how he can use the simple beverage of coffee to enlighten people's day. His personal mission is to assist and inspire new baristas to find the true calling and to guide them towards progress in the coffee industry. Not only has Michael climbed the ranks in coffee shops that he's been a part of, he has also in the past had his own coffee shop as an owner. And so he has been deeply involved in all of the aspects of a coffee retail expression. And now at JWC Coffee Roastery in Malaysia, he is just taking his passion on the road all the time in events, in trainings. If you follow him on Instagram at mike.talks.coffee, you will see what I mean. And in our conversation today, we are going to not only talk about his journey in coffee, but we're also going to talk about his philosophy, mentality, and tactics towards communicating about coffee and what is so important to keep in mind as you are trying to really equip future coffee professionals through training and inspiration. Michael is definitely one of the good ones, and I was really happy to get him on this call and have this conversation. I think you're going to feel the same way. Here now is my interview with the super inspiring Michael Tan of JWC Coffee Roastery. Well, Michael, welcome to Keys to the Shop. How are you today?
Very good, very good. Thanks for having me on the show. Truly an honor to be featured guest at one of my favorite coffee podcasts.
Oh man, I'm really honored to have you on the show. You're a longtime listener and like a super sharer of the episodes. I always see you sharing the episodes. It always warms my heart. And as I've explored, what you do in coffee, I am really impressed by how prolific you are in not only sharing, but the work that you do in training people. And I mean, you've had a pretty long career so far and accomplished quite a lot, I think. And so I wanted to have you on the show and talk with you more, get to know you. I think the audience is really going to benefit from your wisdom. Yeah. Well, let's start in the beginning then and think about what your beginning in coffee was. What really prompted you to get into coffee, and where in that journey did you fall in love with particularly the training and education aspect of it?
Oh, right. So, once again, hi, everyone. My name is Michael from Malaysia. Yeah, so Malaysia, I mean, it's been a long journey. I've been doing coffee for the past 13 years. So it all started back then, very, very naive, very, very simple. So I started in Starbucks, surprisingly, compared to a lot of people. So that was how I began I call it the barista journey instead of the coffee journey, because I get into the ideal of doing coffee as a job was merely just to earn extra money, to be able to travel, to be able to buy the things that I love. So that's how I get into coffee. So in a nutshell, the coffee industry in Malaysia, I can also summarize it as it's still very young. We are only 10 years old in Malaysia, the specialty coffee scene. So yeah, how do I get in? Started from Starbucks, and then I worked myself up the retail, the corporate ladder, or some may call it, because Starbucks in Malaysia is expanding quite rapidly around the area. So I climbed my way up, and then sooner or later, I found myself getting out of Malaysia to be able to have the opportunity to work in one famous cafe in Singapore. So Singapore, for those who didn't know, is just beside Malaysia. Yeah, so I get there to work for, shout out to Common Man Coffee Roasters. They are right now one of the biggest specialty coffee roasters in Singapore. So it was there that I realized, I found the passion for doing training and education. One of the key factors is because in Common Man, we were doing this every Wednesday without fail, rain or shine. Every Wednesday, we will conduct a coffee tasting, or in industry terms, we call it cupping. So I was given the task to host the session. So every Wednesday, I will host a coffee tasting, coffee cupping sessions. The idea is to build a coffee awareness amongst our customers or our guests that come into the cafe. So when they have a look at us, they kind of know like, oh, these guys are serious about coffee. They love coffee. They love to share. And as the time passed, I started to realize that, wow, like events like this can actually inspire and connect with so many people from different walks of life, from different industry. So that was how I fell in love with training and education as another medium of network and inspire people.
Okay, so you did a lot in the first few years of your journey in coffee, from just learning coffee and taking on different jobs at Starbucks and then at Common Man, doing the education. In particular, as you did the education, I want to take a step back and understand a little bit more about the lessons you learned as you went from beginning barista to somebody who is conducting cuppings. Like you're going from a place of just discovering it yourself to helping other people discover it. What was the most effective thing early on that helped you really realize, like as a person who was being educated by others, what stood out the most to be like, oh, the way they taught this and the way they welcomed me into the industry really helped me say to myself, this is the kind of thing that I want to do long term, not just a job to travel and do like what you originally got into it for, but something that is more of a career.
So I had this opportunity prior to Common Man. This was I consider as my first approach to specialty specialty coffee industry, where I was working for one of the earliest coffee roasters, micro coffee roasters here in Malaysia, by the name of Artisan Roast. So the founder of Artisan Roast is Michael Wilson. He's a Kiwi, by the way. He's a New Zealand. Went to Scotland and then he brought the brand back. So he started Artisan in Scotland and then Edinburgh. That was the first outlet. And then he got married to a Malaysian wife. So he came back to Malaysia together with the wife and he set up the micro roastery. So I consider him as my mentor in education, especially in the specialty coffee scene, because when I was working in Starbucks, it was not really a lot of coffee knowledge education. It was more of what it means to be a barista. So I learned the skill of, like, example, customer service. How can you connect to people? How do you maintain your cafe cleanliness, your FIFO, your inventory, your daily shifts and all. And then it was only at Artisan that I got exposed to the specialty coffee scene. So why I would mention this is because Michael was the guy that really, I would say, changed my perception of what education is. Even until now, I still use a lot of his method in all of my trainings. So one of the example is that every time when Michael Wilson, by the way, not Michael Tan me. So when Michael conduct a training, he would use a really loud voice. Yeah, like just passionate and energetic, so much fire. He will be like, "Hi everyone, my name is Michael Wilson." So that kind of like struck inside me. It's like, wow, that is how you connect. That is how you get attention, and people look at you like, wow, these guys are really serious about coffee. So I would say customer service is what really is my biggest takeaway, is that how can you connect to people using the body language, using how you curate your speech and your training materials into like really easy and understandable languages. So this was this is what I learned, and then I brought into Common Man doing the cupping sessions. That was why when I was doing in Common Man, I was the only guy that was hosting it, because they kind of felt like, oh, you're good at it, you know how to create the vibe, so we'll just have you to host it all year long, so it's only you.
Right.
And then when I leave Common Man, I came back, that kind of like just stuck with me even until now. So yeah, that I would say customer service is it's really something that every coffee professional should be really focusing on.
That's great. I feel like a lot of people don't really put out that vibe when they're educating, or we rely on the information itself in the conveying of the information to wow people. But you, as a person representing the information, you're trying to embody the excitement that you want other people to have. So it's kind of a show in a sense, not disingenuous.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Right? You're not being fake. You're just saying, this is consistent with the kind of things that we're talking about, and we're not going to be it's not going to be a training session that's kind of a downer. No, we should be excited about this. Yeah. So as you took on the challenge of training after having a lot of experience at Starbucks and then Common Man, et cetera, what was the biggest hurdle that you personally had to overcome when you were trying to, you were using your mentor's voice and some of the things that he was, displaying as an example, but also you're synthesizing a lot of the information that you've experienced yourself, and you've also got things you're learning currently. So what was the biggest challenge in trying to get all of that out into a session where it was actually relevant to the people you were training?
I would say it would be just you using simple languages to craft or to put in all the information that or I would say the words and terms of specialty coffee into really, really understandable terms. Throughout my coffee journey, I realized that customers or coffee lovers, they don't really understand the terms that the specialty coffee sometimes we are so obsessed with. Example like tasting notes, example like cupping terms, example like brewing methods, and ratio. So and usually, to be honest, they don't even bother. Like, the people that really bothers are the people that really want to get into the industry, and they are so niche. But the general public, what I realize is that they just don't care and they don't bother. So the challenge will be, how can I make that exciting, and how can I make that relatable to their daily lives, that they can understand the things that we are doing adds value to them, and is so worthy to try it as an experience. So one of the example is that I would try to use a daily cooking experience. Example, like when we talk about coffee body. So we all know that coffee oils or undissolved solids will give you mouthfeel and body. But when you try to use that information to, especially here, Asian countries, we are not from the English background nation, so they don't really understand the term, and they don't get the idea. So what I would use is that, imagine like you were to cook vegetables. So if you put olive oil on vegetable, how it feels like, the whole dish feels very it has more aroma. It feels very silky. The texture is very, very nice. But compared to if you don't add olive oil, the dish will be very dry. There's no taste in it. It's very green. It's very herby. So it's finding things like this all the time, and trying to simplify the terms into really understandable languages, so that we open up the barrier for coffee lovers to come into this industry. Yeah.
Do you find that in countries where you said the Malaysian coffee scene maybe is a decade old, and there's a lot of examples from other countries. You mentioned New Zealand, there's Australia, the US, and obviously the UK, etc. The scenes there have been kind of going on a little bit longer. So people in countries where it's a little younger might look to the training norms and the language norms of those countries and try to simply apply them without that context. Is there a lot of that happening? Because you're not doing that. You're saying you're contextualizing it for your audience because they're not from an English background. But is there also an element of looking outside and then just trying to bring it in, but it just not working?
Previously, I would say there's a lot of trainers in Malaysia, or some of the baristas that are a little bit more senior. I mean, we have a lot of passion in the industry, so we kind of like we like to use the terms, we like to use all the languages in coffee. I mean, we love the industry. That's why we are so passionate in spreading it. But it's just like I was fortunate enough where I was exposed to quite a number of areas in the careers coffee side of things, that I was able to pick it up quickly, that we can't educate the customers about coffee. What we can do is that we should bring new experience and awareness, so that's a little bit more impactful compared to like you're trying to educate them with the SCA terms, and stuff like that. So they because in Malaysia, we have another coffee culture that is thriving, which is what we call the Nescafe. So Nescafe is like a brand here in Malaysia. It's they're using Robusta beans. They are roasting it with butter and margarine. It's a bit more traditional coffees. So the specialty coffee industry in Malaysia, we consider them as the Western coffee culture. So it's not really an Asian coffee culture. So for us, like the baristas or like myself that are earlier in the industry, I realized is that the easiest way to bring new awareness and also experience for them is by during the passing on information, that we use languages that are understandable and relatable, and that is not too fancy, and the barrier of entry is actually lower for them to come in and experience. And then from the tasting experience itself, we can then bring it to them that, hey, it's lattes and your flat white is delicious. There's nothing wrong with medium roast. There's nothing wrong with acidity. Is it? So yeah, things like that really kind of like I learned it quite quickly. I'm grateful that to have all the experience quite in a number of careers. That's right.
That's really interesting, and something that we've heard commonly with people who are up against a already existing coffee culture, especially with a Nescafe. It's similar in India. Similar in other, Southeast Asia, especially the Nescafe thing. But it's interesting that is seen as a more traditional way of drinking coffee, when Nescafe obviously is Nestle, and it's not from Malaysia, it's not from India. It's something that was it's exported, but it was adopted, and then it was taken and contextualized and used as a foundation for what now is thought of as traditional, which I guess gives hope to the idea that what you're doing and the kind of coffee that's coming, that is seen right now as Western, can be also taken and then used in a similar way to say this is the bedrock of something that will become quintessentially Malaysian later on, or for anybody else that's using it the similar way, right?
Yep, that's right.
So, okay, let me ask you then, after you've done all of this training, and you've the head cupper, the head trainer, basically, of this company, and you then at a certain point decide to open your own coffee bar. And I want to learn the story about that. What went into the idea of, now I should open my own business? Why did you want to do that? How did it go?
This is a very interesting history. So I was working for Common Man for 2 years, and then so I was based in Singapore. I was staying in Singapore, so I wasn't staying in Malaysia. Despite we are like neighboring country, so I was staying in Singapore, and then I got the news that my mom was having a very severe high blood pressure problem. So that kind of freaked me out. On top of that, because in Singapore, for Malaysians to be able to work there, you need to apply some work permit, and just the paperwork and everything. So my work permit was coming to an end. So I decided to like, hey, what? I've done 2 years here. I've learned all I can. And I think it's time for me to come back to Malaysia, not only for my family, but also to use whatever they have learned, the experience and exposure in Common Man, to bring it back to Malaysia, and sort of like to bring new experience and to see how can I add value in my home country. So that was the main thought when I decided to quit and came back. So when I came back, like previously I mentioned, the specialty coffee industry in Malaysia is still relatively young. So when I came back, it was only about 6 or 7 years into doing specialty. So what happened that period of time was I couldn't find a job. I couldn't land myself a job in any coffee company. Everyone was just hiring barista. I wasn't looking into barista. I was looking into like, is there any room for trainers? Is there any room like for wholesale? But there was none available back then, because the industry is still young, so they don't have any facility that can provide such a career. So, and then I discussed it with my family, and my family sort of like, hey, you know what? How about you try your coffee? How about you just do your own thing? We are still young. There's a lot of opportunities. Who knows? You might succeed with your experience, from Starbucks, from Artisan, from Common Man. You can bring another value to the community, and by having your own brand, it's easier to engage that. So I was kind of like buying into that idea. So I decided to open my shop. After all those things, everything that went through, yeah. So I operate my shop for 2 years as well. That throughout that experience, I would say being an owner really, really, really humbles me.
Wow.
That experience was insane. That is why I really love about sharing, the podcast, Keys to the Shop, because you can learn so much from the sharing that is shared by the Founders Friday. Everyone share about the challenges of being a operator, being a retail owner, being a business owner. There's not just coffee anymore. It really comes down to how do you manage costs at the same time yet serving high grade specialty coffee. Especially the climate in Malaysia, where you have access to cheaper beans like Robusta, but why do you use Arabica beans, which is like what, 3 times the price? And but then again, it doesn't reflect in the volume that we are selling as compared to like Australia, New Zealand, or even like the States. I believe like when I went to Australia, I was blown away by the volume that they are doing, what, 200 kgs per week kind of thing. In Malaysia, we are only doing 5 kg per week.
Right.
just for context, So it's like, so you got to find, as a business owner in Malaysia, especially specialty coffee owners, you got to justify that, and you kind of like, because the main idea is to survive. Coffee quality comes second. The first is you got to survive your business. You got to build a team. So I learned a lot throughout that process of owning my own cafe. And that actually allows me to bring forth a new training packages from my experience as a cafe owner, where at my current company, JWC Coffee Roastery, I included what I call the after sales support program into the wholesale program. Yeah, where I include all example. Being a cafe owner, your number one comfort always come from you when your supplier come and visit you, and they kind of like check in like how's everything going, is everything all right, do you need any support, do you need any marketing support, do you need any discount or vouchers like upcoming holidays, do you want me to arrange to send you some extra beans, do you want barista training on site? So these are some of the things that I realized when I was a cafe owner. I appreciate it when I have suppliers that come to do that to me. So then when I decided to design my own wholesale program, I intentionally include that to add value to the whole wholesale package. So far I'm grateful that has been quite a revelation experience owning a cafe.
Okay. Yeah. So why is that such a comfort? Is because I imagine, and this is something that I think is true about owners, is that it's a lonely position, right? You are kind of looked to for all the answers, and maybe you have a lot of questions, more questions than people might think you have. But talk a little bit about why that kind of revelation came to you as a business owner. What is behind the idea of that comfort of having people check in and give you clarity and context?
Yeah, because I realized that especially in a cafe owner, you are the business owner of the cafe. Most of the time, you are often based at a single location, which is your own cafe. So a lot of things like just running around, you got to juggle, and you got to think about, like, for your business, you got to plan ahead, what's going on, and I feel that this is what makes coffee really interesting, because the coffee industry focus or prioritize a lot. We are where we are today because of connections. We love the idea of being able to connect to the flavors of coffee. We love the idea that we are able to connect to fellow baristas or like fellow coffee industry peers, that really passionate about coffee through that tiny little beverage. So when suppliers come into the cafe to visit or to do after sales support, and especially when they show care to you, that do you need help, do you need assistance, do you need, like, because as a supplier, we have the privilege of running around the nation. We get to go around meeting different people, we get to network with a lot of different industry peers, we get to go to exhibitions and everything, so we can bring those experience or what we see outside, and then when we share it to the fellow cafe owners, they kind of feel very motivated. They say, and oftentimes it sparks the idea of, like, oh, maybe I can create a new promotion, or maybe I can create this coffee activity. So another thing that I was doing quite often for this year at JWC is, when I visit to cafe, I will ask them, are they interested in hosting coffee cupping or coffee tasting sessions? But I will host it. You just have to provide the space. The whole idea is to help you to build awareness for your brand, and just to establish yourself in the community that you are serving great coffee. That was the whole idea. And all of them, every time when I talk to them about that, every time they are excited, every time they are grateful, every time they felt like, wow, my coffee supplier just back me up, and I feel very supported in the industry, and that is what makes the coffee industry exciting and different from other industry, because we can connect through that connection and the beverage, and then we add value and inspire community. So yeah, I mean, because when I look at other, I would say, ingredients, that example, like your milk or even like your kitchen, hardly those suppliers would do things like this. So, but I kind of see that when we as a coffee industry, when we do that, a lot of business owners was very surprised, and they kind of like, they felt supported.
I love the idea of being there as a almost like a cheerleader for your accounts and for these companies, And I know that one of the challenges of wholesale training is entering into different cultures and I don't mean like country cultures, I mean the coffee bars themselves, the businesses themselves. And you've had enough experience in the industry to not only get to know coffee really well, but also people. And I'm interested in, as we've talked about, contextualizing how you describe knowledge of coffee to people. How do you study or prepare yourself to enter into different social situations with the same knowledge in order for it to stick? Because coffee bars are different all over. It might not be as received in one place as another. How do you approach that?
I often I would contribute that to the to how the way I love to make coffee. I have to admit, I'm a very lazy person when it comes to making coffee. That's why you don't see any coffee bar, you don't see any pour overs in my house. Despite being in the industry long enough and I really love coffee,
Yeah.
but I just don't like to do it. Yeah, so I rather pay for someone else and just enjoy the experience, and I kind of like I'd rather just go out. I don't want to make myself. So I think that character kind of like being bring forward as I do my trainings and all, which I call it the KISS concept. So the KISS concept. So I learned this from one of the old time Coffee Fest competitor. I believe you could know as well, Nobu Masa.
Yeah.
From Japan. Yeah. So he's my idol in Coffee Fest Latte Art Championship.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I had the opportunity to compete with him at Japan, Tokyo. Yeah, so the Japan Coffee Fest. So it was exciting. Anyway,
we miss all the Asian competitors at Coffee Fest. That's for sure. Ever since COVID, it's been
yeah, that's right. I just love it. Yeah, I've been a fan of Coffee Fest Latte Art since my first barista days. Yeah. So Noble is a big attribute for KISS concept in terms of when it comes to latte art training. So I actually applied that to, so KISS is basically means keep it simple, silly, So everything that I do, every training that I will conduct in any other whatever places, I will try to minimize into small little steps and also different modules to help the barista or the coffee lovers to understand the topic or a particular subject in coffee. So example, like when it comes to milk steaming, I will only apply 3 steps. So I will teach like, okay, that's step 1, step 2, step 3. And by doing this, you'll be able to guarantee get a really good froth. So example is that, step 1, I will use a bit of logic. I will explain to them that the milk jug is round, so you don't have to worry about the milk going to any other directions. The only thing that you need to worry is to find the angle that when the steam one purge, your milk is able to swirl following the shape of the milk jug. So that's step number 2, which is to tilt 4 o'clock the moment you put it into the steam tip. And then the third step would be by hearing the hissing sound, the milk stretching, you are able to identify how much foam that you need in your froth. So by doing this, by keeping it simple, a lot of baristas, they can understand better and they're able to pick up better. That applies to another topic that I usually conduct, which is the dialing in process. So my dialing in process is, again, KISS, very lazy. I often call it as, the 5 minutes into dialing in. So you only have to calibrate your coffee in 3 shots, less than 5 minutes. So by understanding the variables of what goes into dialing in, example, ratio, your dose, and then your time, by applying these 3, the only variables that you need to change is grind size. So once you change the grind size, you get the right flow, you get into your ratio. You understand that dark roast, you don't extract long because it's going to be bitter. light roast, you extract longer, because if you extract short, it will be very sour. So by applying logic like this, you are able to dial in soonest. So the whole training package I designed only focus on one outcome, and that is to speed up your workflow and to do and perform customer service. Yeah, that is how I curate my coffee training program.
All right. Well, with the training program and keeping it simple, I think that's really important, obviously. And then, so that simplicity will kind of overcome a lot of those barriers because it's not that hard to understand for everybody. So no matter if you've got a large group or a small group, that's going to be easier to apply to them. And so what are the top three things, like it could be more than three things, I guess, that you would say a wholesale trainer needs to be successful? Because you're representing the coffee industry, and the work you do is so important for building people, building businesses, representing the business that you work for. What would you say to that question?
I would say you need to have the 3 Ps. You need to have passion for people, you need to have passion for coffee, and you need to have the passion to progress. Because the why people, I truly felt that the coffee industry is part of the hospitality business. So by letting our guests or our customers felt welcome and felt invited, to try out different flavor nuances in coffee that we like to present. So when you have the passion for people, you like to make their day. That applies to any other people, including if you are doing training or you are serving in the bar, or you are just barely doing networking. You need to really love to connect, and you need to have a passion to do service. Second would be you definitely need to have passion for coffee. You need to love the coffee that you like to drink. And when I mention coffee, a lot of times, especially younger barista, they will always ask me the question that when you say passion for coffee, so I will only drink specialty. Is that correct? No, actually. In fact, like for myself, I still drink my, Nescafe. I still drink my coffee culture thing. The reason being is that because I felt that as a coffee professional, you need to understand what are the flavors that is possible in coffee. You can choose a different brewing method to present it. When you try it, you don't have to like it, but at least you need to understand what are the flavors that are potentially available to be presented in coffee. Because as part of the trainer program, especially in our company, is that a lot of cafes out there, some cafes, they like to serve or they choose to serve coffees that are on the lighter side of roasting, and some cafe on the darker side of roasting. So you need to understand how to gauge the two different crowd, and to like present to them that, hey, neither one is good or better than the other, but both have different identity. So how our main goal of training is how can we preserve or serve the best identity that you want your customers to experience. That's most important. And then third will be definitely in terms of progression. So one of the key that I felt that really keep me so long in the industry is that I'm always seeking out new knowledge. I'm always learning. Listening to podcasts is one of the things that I do often. And also by watching barista competitions as well, that you really keep up with the industry, and what are people doing, especially where in Southeast Asia, the countries like Australia or New Zealand or the States or even in UK, people are trying out so many things. So we can actually learn by watching competition, by learning from them. So then once we learn, we can then apply back to our own nation and our own community. That's right. So I would say 3 Ps. Definitely you need to have a lot of passion.
When you talk about the educating yourself and the progression beyond what you currently know, so you're looking to competitions and you take what you learn and you bring it back, This is one of those things I think that is a double-edged sword for a lot of owners out there, because they see their baristas plugged into this external culture, this online connected culture of what's going on in competitions, and they say, oh, I want to try that at my bar. And the owner says, well, that's great, but like, we can't just try everything that you see online, because then that would be mass confusion. Like, everybody would want to try to do things that they see James Hoffman doing, and Lance Hedrick and other people, and that's not necessarily a problem. But there has to be like an order to it, so it makes sense. It's kind of like when we are irresponsibly telling farmers that they should just do all these crazy processing methods because it's what's in right now, and not really paying attention to exactly, does it make sense for you? So what would you say is a more what would you say is a responsible way for a trainer, somebody who's responsible for maybe a lot of people following the same standard, to take information that they see out there, new stuff that they see people doing, and bring it back, but have it be beneficial and not just this novel thing that's really fun, so let's try this and try that. How can this work holistically instead of just being, flavor of the month kind of thing?
Yeah. One of the keynote that I always try to inform or telling a lot of the younger barista, or even like when we have a discussion with coffee peers, is that the coffee competition, it's a very, very unusual environment where you have 15 minutes to present 12 beverages. You have 4 people sitting in front of you, whether you like it or not, you're just going to stare at them the whole time. So it's a very unusual environment compared to the cafe environment. And a lot of things that they're doing, sometimes in terms of workflow, it's not applicable in a day-to-day operation. So I always tell them is that the biggest takeaway from watching competitions, we need to understand is that the main goal is any of the competitor, whatever that they are doing, is there any breakthrough in the process of presenting that beverage? So, for example, when I watch competitions, I don't really look at what ingredients go into the coffee, like for example the signature beverage course, or I don't really look at the choice of cups that they are serving. What I often try to look for is the words that they use when they are talking to the judges. So I will always try to find, is there any new way of saying something? Is there any new way of presenting this term? What are the choice of words that they use? And also, like, what I look at is also like in terms of workflow. I'm a kind of guy that I like to punch out drinks as soon as I can so that I can move on to the next task. So I often study like how is their setup on the competitions. Is it workflow efficiency? That enables customer service, and also you get the job done as soon as possible. So these are some of the things that I would always encourage people to look at. Is that because by watching competition, especially like in the world stage, you have so many competitors. Every one of them will try to break through in terms of their speech, their presentation. They will definitely want to wow the judges. So when we watch things like this, we can actually try to learn from them. Like, is there any new way of saying something that makes sense and is easy to understand, so that when we use it, the customers can also experience it the same way as well. So yeah, I would say like just try to pick out, focus on what works for your operation. That's most important. Yeah.
Right. That's great. I'm glad that you said that. Working on looking at what works for your operation, I guess, means that you already have a pretty good, thorough knowledge about your operation and why your operation works, and maybe what could be used to enhance it, rather than just saying like grass is greener on the other side mentality, where it's just like, I want to escape to a land where everybody is, manicuring their shots for 20 seconds. And the idea of looking into what they're saying, I think, is really interesting, and I hadn't really heard it put that way. But we always look at how people are brewing coffee and the equipment that they're using, and like you mentioned, the signature drinks and things, and sometimes you'll just see people adopt those types of processes on their bar. But this whole talk, as we've been communicating about communicating coffee, has been kind of people focused, like what's beneficial to the owner, what's beneficial to the person you're teaching, and the idea that words are a part of the product of the competition is really interesting. I think that's super cool.
Yep. Yeah, especially like if you look at the world competitions, like the especially from the Asian side, the choice of words, because we are not from a mostly like English education, English ed background, so a lot of words that a lot of competitors use. Sometimes it's very interesting. Sometimes when I try to pick up like Hidenori, or even like guys like Chet Wang, his Brewers Cup competition, it was amazing. Like the choice of words of how he decided to describe a particular process, or to bring forward that information, to the judges. I like to learn those words, and I often use it once I truly understand it, and then I will try to apply it during my training. Yeah, and to the point that I can even memorize the speech is insane.
Oh man,
Yeah.
So when you're training, is it mostly in English or Malay?
When we're doing training, depending on the crowd, I like so happen in Malaysia, we are lucky enough that we can learn multiple languages,
Yeah.
So I do have an English crowd. I also have a Chinese crowd, which is speaking Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
I also have what we call the Cantonese crowd, where they can't speak Mandarin, they speak Cantonese, so it's weird. And then we also have the Malay crowd, which is what is our national language, so Malay. So the thing with, I would say I'm fortunate enough is that I was so I'm a Christian, so I was brought up in English education family. So my father can only speak English, so I was fortunate enough to be able to learn English by going to church, reading the Bible and everything. And then I was also fortunate that my early education background, I went to Chinese school. So I get to learn Mandarin from there.
Wow.
And then I get to mix around and learn a new language, which is Cantonese. And then of course we need to learn our national language, which is Malay. So, and then this is also another breakthrough, which I consider, is that I was fortunate to be able to go to Starbucks as my early career, because in Starbucks there is a lot of what we call the Malay group of people, which is our biggest native group in Malaysia. So we have a lot of Malays working in Starbucks. So I have a lot of friends over there, and a lot of my teachers are from Starbucks as well. How I learned my barista days. So I would say that actually also brings me another advantage in my training program, where I can communicate in 4 languages.
Wow.
So yeah. It's a constant learning journey, because every term is different in different languages. So, but I would say that that's why I mentioned that you need to have a passion to progress. Is that you don't, in the coffee industry, we don't just confine ourselves with how can we make the best possible cup, or how can we pour the best possible latte art. I felt that the soft skills are even more important in the coffee industry. Is that you are able to portray knowledge in 4 languages, let's say, or even like can you connect to different industry. Like lately I was doing a lot of just learning from other industry, example like the financial industry, where they use online Zoom Live to do their training. So I was doing this in the coffee side things here. So I was applying the same thing. And also, like, for example, I learned from, how can you build a team based on, using your KPIs, and really understanding of, like, can we actually progress together as a company when you have your vision and mission and values and all. So I felt that these soft skills are actually more important than, making the best possible cup possible. Yeah, of course, it would be great if you can always make the best possible cup, but I felt that in life we need to progress, and so that we can actually bring more value and really just expand the awareness and building more exposure of specialty coffee to the community. I felt that is a bit more important.
Well said. Well said. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there, I think, with the idea that it would be nice to make a great cup of coffee every time. We really have a lot of resources for that. We don't have as many with soft skills, and if you think about the idea of making coffee, the result is you get a good extraction, it tastes great, it's repeatable, you really unlock the potential of that coffee, and the taste of that
That's
great
right.
cup is what you're after. That's the end goal. And if you can clarify what you're after in the soft skills, like what is the cup of coffee that you're trying to brew when you're trying to get understanding? What is the TDS of good communication and the extraction percentage of good communication, and bringing people up in coffee so that they have a real appreciation for it. So if you just kind of take that idea of all the passion you have for dialing in your grinder and everything else and just apply that to those soft skills, it feels like we could make a good amount of progress. So I love that, the way you're thinking about that.
The only way that the industry can move forward is not, how many cups or how many best cups that we can serve. It's more of how can we connect and how many people that we can inspire, how many lives that we can touch. That is actually more proven, and it's a better way to spread the awareness, instead of if we just focusing on flavor and flavor and flavor. Because I felt that the coffee experience, oftentimes, even like us, I got into the coffee industry not because of the flavor, but because of the idea of you are able to connect with so many people. Like, I don't see other industry connect as to how the way the coffee industry connect. Like, you don't see accountants sit beside an accountant and say, hey, how's your P&L doing?
Right, let's
don't
have a
see
calculator
that.
throwdown.
Yeah, like let's can see who can calculate the ROI in like the quickest way. You just don't see that. But the coffee industry, like when I go to Japan, like even I don't speak Japanese, but I just have to tell them, hey, I'm a barista, and then they'll be like, whoa, like, do you like coffee? I'm like, yeah, man. So that felt that is what I felt is what the really spread the idea of specialty coffee, because we human beings, we like to be connected. We like to be supported. We like a community sense. And that is how, when I design, even like in my training, I try to incorporate these values. You see, so I actually spend more time when I do not only when I do my coffee training, every time after the training, I will spend time sit down with the barista and sort of like, okay, so what you plan to do next? What do you want to do? And the exciting part about right now in Malaysia is that a lot of times, like those days when I quit from my job, the only possible career that I can think of is to open a cafe moving forward. It's like, oh, so what's next after being a head barista? So let's just open my own cafe and just do something. No, I felt like right now, there's a lot more opportunity when you can obtain the soft skills. Opportunity, like you can actually do you can do project management, or you can do, like, for example, like myself, I'm a wholesale coffee manager, or you can do even like head trainer, green bean buyer. You can become marketing, social media. Right now, social media even has a job scope of its own. You can do like strategy manager, something like that. So these are the skills that I felt, if the barista, the good thing is that we already learned the basics of barista. We know how to make coffee, and next, how can we learn soft skill so that we keep on spreading all these good vibes and all this good coffee, and that's all that matters. And I believe in, like, Malaysia right now, comparing 10 years ago and what I see right now, it's I mean, yeah, I will even be surprised if, like, 10 years ago I tell you that there is a cafe nearby my place.
Right.
Like those days, 10 years ago, if I want to drink a cup of flat white, I will need to drive 45 minutes out from my place just to get a cup of flat white.
Yeah, wow.
It's insane, yeah. And right now, there's literally 2 cafes within walking distance from my place.
Beautiful.
You see, so there's now and then every week we have new cafe opening up, mushrooming across the city, Kuala Lumpur right now in KL, and also other states as well. So and I felt that, you know, we by just keep on spreading great vibes, and that is how we can connect with more and more people and really inspire, or sort of like just bring a new perception to the coffee lovers that, you know, coffee acidity, it's actually not a bad thing. You know, like you can give it a try. It's an experience that you get to learn, and you know, if you like it, good for you. Let's continue doing it. If you don't like it, so much. Drink what you need to drink. You want to add 2 spoons of sugar? Go for it. Have fun.
Love it. Well, I appreciate this. I appreciate your perspective on this, and just the soft skill development and spreading good vibes and really helping to spread positivity about coffee in the midst of developing yourself, because it can be stressful. You know, as a profession matures, there's a lot of stress and ambition that comes with that. And by keeping it positive and keeping it focused on communing with other human beings in process and being passionate, just back to that idea of those 3 Ps of passion, I think we're setting ourselves up for seeing a great future in coffee. So I really appreciate you coming on the show, Michael, and talking about
Thank
all
you, Chris,
this.
for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. How can people stay in touch with you and all that you're doing?
Oh, you can follow me on my Instagram, mike.talks.coffee. So Mike Talks Coffee. Also, you can check out our JWC, JWC Roastery. We have our IG and also our Facebook. Yeah, so at the moment I'm handling the company Instagram. So yeah, if you message me on JWC Roastery, yeah, I'll be the one that will be answering and all. Yeah, but yeah, I think Malaysia is exciting. I'm definitely looking forward to have more people visiting the country, especially right now with the pandemic. It's starting to a little bit ease compared to 2 years ago, when it's like total lockdown is a nightmare to retail space.
Oh, that.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely would like to wish everyone, you know, that you don't give up on your side, on yourself, you know, really just focusing on progression. Every coffee professional started from passion. It can be passion in latte art, it can be passion in brewing. So I will always encourage is that once you develop the passion and you develop the necessary professional skills, the next is definitely just self-progression in terms of your communication skill, especially management skills. So crucial, you know, that you are able to lead a team and to win and break through together as an industry, you know, and then to really just inspire people by using a cup of coffee. I believe that is what makes the specialty coffee so exciting, and definitely a bright future. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Michael, for being on the show. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Well, everybody, I hope that you found that useful and inspiring, and that it energized you to really, really think about the way that you communicate to people, the words that you're using, so you can influence somebody's thoughts and their direction in the industry simply by the way you carry yourself, the way you talk, the words you choose to use. Whether you're hoping to win over a consumer or shape and help a barista in their journey, I think Michael's wisdom really is helpful and useful for all of us who find ourselves in some way, no matter where we are, being of influence, and we want to be a positive influence. Certainly, Michael has helped us do that. So a huge thank you to Michael Tan for joining us on the show and just generously sharing his time and insights with the Keys to the Shop audience. Really appreciate you, Michael. If you want to follow him on Instagram, which I would recommend, you can find him at mike.talks.coffee. And if you're interested in what's going on over at the place he works right now, Just Want Coffee, or JWC, that is justwantcoffee.com. And now, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback for me about today's episode, feel free to email me, chris@keystotheshop.com. It's where you can do that. And also, if you're interested in working with Keys to the Shop Consulting, please use that email, chris@keystotheshop.com. And I want to let you know that coming up is the Los Angeles and Seattle Coffee Fest. Those are the last remaining shows for 2022. And I'm going to be at those shows. I hope to see you there because Coffee Fest has, for 3 decades now, been providing the most value, the most relevant content and resources for coffee professionals just like you to help you build an amazing coffee shop and care for your staff and your customers. Go visit them over at coffeefest.com for more information about these upcoming shows. And you can use the code KEYS to get 50% off your registration when you go to coffeefest.com to register yourself and your team. There's free and accessibly priced workshops, seminars, just all sorts of educational opportunities for you and your baristas, as well as the trade show floor, of course, and the great opportunity to network with like-minded coffee professionals. So if you're not already aware of Coffee Fest and going to Coffee Fest, please do yourself and your business a favor and go check out coffeefest.com. And with that, that is the end of our show today, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Don't forget to share these episodes with a friend. Subscribe to Keys to the Shop on your podcast platforms. Thanks, everybody. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.